Welcome back to here at Goldberg. Today I'll be talking about a couple of recent events. And just briefly, I'm planning to release a paperback copy of the World Enemy text in the next week or so. Just have to determine exactly how many pages it has when you go to submit for the full cover creation. Otherwise, the spine will be jacked up. I've also done some pruning, added a little bit more information. If you happen to have purchased an ebook already, it will eventually revise once those are added in. So you don't have to worry about missing out, getting shortchanged. As I noted with Tamu, there was the one item I ended up sending back. Now, I had another garden implement, which it was halfway functional, but not terribly sturdy, and the length was disappointing, which to be fair, a lot of people struggle with that. They said, hey, just keep it, we'll refund it, which is pretty awesome. And then there was a little camping stove that I don't really trust their reliability, so I didn't even open it. I decided to return it to Temu. This time around, you had to go FedEx instead of UPS. And I chose a location that was embedded in a department store. So I'm figuring you walk in there, it's going to be maybe 5 minutes tops. We're good to go. Well, you know when you get that creeping feeling that maybe something's wrong? So as I enter this little booth, I see in front of me a very tall, very ratchet, very butch country heifer wearing muddy boots and a ballpark cap. She had a polo as well. And she's trying to send one little box with a tablet, then another plastic bin, you know where the tops they fold together in the middle, they kind of mesh. And then there was this very large, it looked like a canopy frame perhaps with the stakes, not in a bag, just completely loose. So she wanted this all packed and sent. Well, there's one sales associate. She goes, "So, would you like insurance on that?" Don't reckon. She gets on the phone. "You want insurance?" "You betcha." Okay, add insurance. And she kept doing this. She would call up the guy for 30 seconds, ask him a question, then hang up. And I said, this is going to be 40 minutes. Abort, abort, abort. So I headed out to the car. Now, later on, I found another location that was less tolerant of LGBT. So they only do the shipping, not the packing. And in that instance, didn't take long. You had the manager lady, the sales associate guy. He was about to go on break. He said, "I'm just really exhausted right now. I think I'm going to go to 7-Eleven and get me a Slurpee." And she's like, "Oh, that's an amazing idea." But I was able to return that package safe and sound. Now, returning earlier, so I'm still at the department store. I put the box in my car and I wanted to get some more tea because during the summer I like that orange or lemon or raspberry stuff. You can't always brew it straight as iced tea. Sometimes you have to do it hot first and then make it cool down. Well, and you can do it, by the way, without sugar. Another great option is non-fluoridated water with lemon juice. Chill it overnight, and it's delicious. Again, you don't need sweeteners. I'm actually debating maybe in 3 or 4 years when my next birthday rolls around, I will upgrade coolers because right now I've got this little one that has a Velcro latch, which has since been compromised. It always pops open in the car. It doesn't have that much storage capacity. I was considering maybe brewing a gallon of iced tea for the weekend, just keep it iced down in the back of the car because when you go to Starbucks for a small passion tango, it's over $4 and all they're doing is filling the cup with ice, going to the little tank and doing the lever, the spigot, and then they want a tip as well. Now, I get it. The main reason you go to these places is because it's the ambience, socialization, and air conditioning, because most spots will not let you just sit in there without paying. In any case, I've got my several boxes of Celestial seasonings and I'm heading to the register, which is self-checkout, although ironically, there's a number of guest service associates monitoring it for some reason. I wonder why. And right ahead of me is this senior citizen brother in one of those electric wheelie carts with a basket on the front. He's got the crown line, just two tufts of gray hair, just barely connected by a few follicles in the center. And I just felt inspired. Tears came to my eyes for that resilience because a lot of us, I'll be honest, we're going to be bald cells by the time we're 25. Well, they say, "Hey, sir, would you like to pay cash or card?" And he goes, "Cash is good, motherfucker. Cash is good, motherfucker." He kept saying this. And they're like, "Okay, wait for the cash one." And they turn the BBW. She says to me, "Goldberg, what about you? Cash or card?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll cuck out. I'll use a card." So I was able to get out all in one piece. Later on that day, I returned to the one store, and the blonde was not working, although this Latina was present. She is very pale skin, albeit with indigenous features, if that makes any sense. And sometime before, she expressed interest in watching that silly Disney movie presently in theaters about the blue mouse or muskrat, pygmy lion, whatever it is. So I just up and said, "Would you like to check it out?" "Well, I need to know in advance because of my schedule." And that's on me. I should have been more aggressive. What about next week? Just to gauge if there was serious interest or it was a soft put down. In this instance, I just went, "Did you get to watch that film?" "Yeah, it wasn't all that." I was like, these gals will not learn. She could have gone to the movie with Goldberg. It would have been underwhelming, but if she played her cards right, she'd get a happy ending. You can roll the red carpet and they just don't want to play ball. Then they have regrets afterwards. So maybe I'll make another attempt. What's in theaters? Is it Superman or Fantastic Four, where Pedro Pascal has anxiety, so he squeezes women's asses to feel better, that kind of thing? Anyway, I also visited this spot I don't typically frequent, and there was a cute redhead there. The Latina now, she could have been probably a supermodel, or at least a model, or at least someone taking pictures on Instagram. She had a phenotype which I've only seen a couple times in life. I remember in Puerto Rico, downtown San Juan, there was this girl hawking jewelry outside of some corner store, and she had dark hair, sun-kissed complexion, but her features were more Eurocentric. And I haven't seen that a whole lot of times in my life. Someone will say in Colombia, although some of the Colombians I've come across look more indigenous, look more like gorditas. Had my usual day where I've got a bit of a gap between jobs, and I walked into this one restaurant fully expecting to get a booth. But the girl says, "Sorry, it's Invasion of the Boomer Snatchers, so you have to sit at the bar." And I'm not a big fan of that because I like to lay out some research material. I also don't appreciate having my back to the door, so I just said, "Do a roundabout." As I was heading to this restaurant in the first place, I passed another authentic Italian, made by Italians type spot. And out back, there was this Latina throwing trash. She caught my eye because she had a bob hairstyle. I call it a lampshade, which is not super popular, but some are bringing it back. And I said, maybe she's one of the waitresses. So I go to park. As I'm heading in, though, my mind says, "Goldberg, you're going to get some hefty country girl." Lo and behold, I enter the restaurant, and it's this glasses wearing brunette BBW. So she's immediately trying to flirt with me. "Oh, what are you reading? That's so interesting. You're so intellectual. I like reading too." And I wanted to be nice because heavy people can be actually decent human beings. It's just that I'm not desirous of them. So I said, "Oh, I bet you've never read A Court of Thorns." "Oh my God, that's the best series ever. I've read every single one of them." And it's true. Pretty much every woman now, this is the generation's 50 Shades of Grey. In fact, it's funny. At the gym, I saw the one hijabi. I got her confused with another one that's part of a couple. But this girl, she's shorter, but she is attractive. She definitely has the build that if you were to marry her, she's going to make you Mediterranean carb max. But between the Stanley Cup or the imitation Stanley Cup, that's probably going to be my lead in asking her about that. And then I'll bring up Court of Thorns because I swear it doesn't matter. They can wear the scarf, they can be as supposedly traditional as possible. They're still, if they read, they're reading the same material as every other woman. It's kind of funny. My plan was to only devour a meatball marinara sub, and no, that's not a euphemism for the BBW. But she said, "You want fries?" And that was a huge mistake because when I'd finished the sub and I finished the fries, I was bloat maxed. You should always observe Maimonides' advice: eat till you're about 75 to 80% full. It's much better than overeating. And I try to control myself. Usually, what gets me is junk food because I don't allow myself to have it much, but when it's available, I can overdo it. That's why the one downside about not being a remote worker is that people bring in crap and then you have a tendency to gravitate towards it. Well, when I'd finished my meal, I headed over to the dollar store because they got some cool items like those liquid death cans, the large ones for $1.25. I think it's called Green Guillotine. It's green tea with maybe 7 grams of sugar. There was also some little foot powder. Usually I use the baking soda. This is baking soda with some other components, and it's just nice for airing out shoes. And then you have those Arm& Hammer towelettes, which are fantastic, especially with the heat we've been getting. You just go, you can actually take the sweat off, and maintain like a decent odor because, you know, it's self-respect, but it's also common courtesy, and a lot of people don't observe that. So I'm in the dollar store and I go to the register. Ahead of me, there's this old school brother in a tank top. And then there was another lady shopping who worked there, but she was just there to get goods. She had this oversized, I want to say SpongeBob t-shirt. The cashier and another woman getting off, they're all conversing about this mean customer who was in there, came multiple times and was rude. Well, that girl in the SpongeBob shirt, I got maybe 4 feet away from her, and I swear to God, it smelled like something that the automatic flush failed to dispatch. It was brutal. And I'm going, you know how people, when the whole Branch Covidian stuff, they'd say wear a mask, but then you'd see them in the bathroom not washing their hands? I swear, people go after the Care Bears for being paranoid about hygiene in a restroom. But I swear there's a lot of people in America walking around with a peanut butter sandwich and they just don't realize it. Now, I understand you're heavy, it's more difficult to get to certain spots, but do we have to go to the Shawshank model, throw powdered soap on people and hit them with a garden hose? Because it's just getting out of control. Anytime I'm walking down an aisle, if I see a ratchet American coming or I see an Indian, I just instinctively hold my breath until I'm about 6 or 7 feet past because it's just absolutely brutal. I can only imagine some third world countries how it's got to be because it's more mainstream. Nah, I can't do that. Refuse to do that. Speaking of Indians, I was at Costco and I'm trying to walk from the parking lot into the store. This lady shoots up in her sedan and it's stop sign, printed stop white on the road. She looks at me, makes eye contact, floors it. So almost hit me in that occasion. There was another instance in Costco. It's in the middle of the parking lot. You know, you have those four-way intersections. And I'm trying to go to my left to exit. There was this senior Indian couple in an SUV. And they are turn signal to go to their right. They're perpendicular to me. They also have the wheels oriented in that direction. And I just wave them, you guys go ahead first. Because one of those awkward, like dun 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 dun, when you come to the same intersection at the exact same moments. So they wave, and I momentarily take my eyes off them because I'm going to make my turn. All of a sudden, they just floor it going forward. So I had to hit my brakes real hard, mash the horn. They proceed to honk their horn and flip me off like it's my fault that they're violating basic traffic rules. But it gets even better. So the other day, I'm heading out of the grocery store parking lot. There's this little silver Volkswagen Beetle in front of me, and we have a green light to go left, so there's no yield to oncoming traffic business. He starts advancing, but has to stop abruptly because this golden minivan comes out of nowhere, blows right through the red light. If he had been further ahead, he would have taken it on the broadside, which is really bad if you have a small car. So I proceed down the road to this global market, and that shopping center is a little bit ratchet. As such, I park towards the end of the lot to avoid any fender bender type stuff. As I'm walking in, first you have this red van that makes a super sharp movement trying to get in right next to a handicap spot, and he overdid it so his wheel hump was across the white line. The corner of the front of his car was about to smash into this dude, so he had to try to back up awkwardly at an angle. I make a note of it and I keep walking, but I hear this faint whirring of an engine. So I'm like, let's not be too aggressive here. And good thing I did because that same freaking gold van cuts left right in front of me, almost hit my foot going into a space. And you got all the windows down. I guess their AC was busted. It's this Adam Scott looking curry cell. And he's smirking and giggling at me. Eee, I almost kill you. Eee, I almost ran you over. Eee. You know, Brother Amr talked about this, that with the Air India disaster, because subcontinental males are not taken seriously in their own societies, they're viewed as children, and even less so in the West. No one really wants to see them as men. They inculcate that, and they view everything as a game. So even if it's a safety precaution that affects other folks, they don't really care. I talked about in the Ellen video that grown-ass dude, presumably college educated, who I told him don't press the button on the dehumidifier, and within 5 minutes he had pressed the same button and he leaves a mess on the floor and walks away. It's like, I don't know if they really listen to instructions. That's my sense. It's kind of like the crazy taxi or bad taxi arcade game you could play where you drive all over the sidewalk. Now, the mistake I made is that I should have taken a picture of him and taken the license plate and just sent it to the highway patrol, because if you, in the space of 5 minutes, make two serious traffic violations that could have gotten someone killed, it probably isn't because you're rushing. That likely speaks to your mindset and how you disregard other people. So, on a long enough timeline, some elderly person, some child that's less aware, doesn't have the same reaction time, is going to end up 6 feet under because of this moron. And there needs to be a serious question, because we hear all this, oh, they're enriching our countries, they're adding to the diversity pot. Yeah, and they're getting people killed because they don't respect any rule or regulation. It's all suggestion. In better news, I did swing by the Dollar General once more and talk to that girl a tad, although it was super busy and she was the only cashier. So I'll have to go back when it's quieted. She's maybe 5'10, 5'11, but she's not fat. She's got the traditional buxom or curvy build, so definitely wears it well. No BBW tier elements. What was more interesting is, as I'm going down one of the aisles, I stumble across the guy who did work on my house. And in his basket, he has grape Uncrustables, sweet tea, and those Pillsbury Doughboy cinnamon buns in a can. Well, he's telling me that they removed a kidney stone the size of one of those big fireball candies. He had to go to the emergency room for it because it was causing so much pain. Then, right after, doctors say you have lung cancer, lifelong smoker. This is a guy, he's done manual labor his whole life. His hands are constantly covered in paint. His wife had MS, and they tried to do an experimental treatment, which apparently they had to sign a waiver for, and it's believed that that treatment gave her a mass in her brain, which took her out. He's lost his hair. He's very much working class guy, not exactly living high on the hog, despite being a tradesman. And he said to me, "You know what, man? I'm gonna go home, make myself a pot of coffee, eat my grape Uncrustable, and smoke a bowl." And I said, "Man, you're such an inspiration. You got all this nonsense in the world, and he's just going to smoke a bowl." I'm not a big advocate of drugs, but I thought it was kind of a nice vignette of America. Like, who cares? Just enjoy yourself. Luckily, the lung cancer is early on, so they should be able to operate, but he's going to be out for a bit. So I may have him do some more work, because he said he's trying to stack cash for the event, because he's going to have to be, I think, recovering for a month or so. Anyways, that's my set of adventures recently. Let me know what you guys have been up to, and we can discuss.